They say life changes in moments. But mine? Mine changed in an appointment slot. It was a Tuesday. A regular, harmless Tuesday. The kind of day that makes oatmeal seem spicy. I was finishing up some patient charting at my clinic, the same small, friendly gynecology office I'd worked at for nearly 7 years. Not as a doctor, mind you. No stethoscope or white coat. I was the practice manager, the clipboard guy, the one who keeps the wheels turning quietly in the background. My wife, Melissa, had texted me earlier. "Hey babe, got a quick checkup today? Just a routine thing. Love you, 2 hearts." Now, I don't keep tabs on my wife's pap smear schedule, but I remember tilting my head at that message for a second. Quick checkup wasn't her usual lingo. But hey, sometimes a carrot just looks like a carrot. I tossed my phone aside and got back to my spreadsheets. Until she walked in. I was coming back from the break room with a cup of microwave coffee when the chime over the entrance rang. I looked up, and there she was, Melissa. Mask on, hoodie up, but unmistakably her. I froze mid-sip. And here's where things got educational. See, our clinic has a digital check-in kiosk. Patients enter their full name and date of birth. Standard stuff. I watched her do it. She didn't see me, too busy tapping the screen. But what she typed wasn't Melissa Carter. It was Samantha Briggs. Born in 1993. Male partner listed on file. Nathan Briggs. I blinked. My brain stalled like a bad internet connection. I stared at the name like it might magically rearrange itself into something logical. It didn't. She sat down in the waiting room with her phone out, tapping away like this was just another Tuesday. I didn't confront her. I didn't walk over with wild accusations or toss my coffee across the room like a telenovela extra. That's not who I am. Instead, I walked back to my desk, sat down, and stared at the check-in log. Samantha Briggs. She was pretending to be someone else. Or no, she was someone else. Just not with me. I texted her. "Hey babe, you still at that checkup? Everything okay?" She replied 30 seconds later. "Just got here. Love you. Wish me luck, 2 hearts." And that was the moment I felt something crack. Not loud, not dramatic, just internal, like a hairline fracture in a favorite mug. Barely visible, but you know it's there now. You feel it every time you lift it. She was lying to me. Boldly, casually, with a heart emoji. I printed the appointment invoice under Samantha Briggs. Paid in full by cash. I folded it neatly, slipped it into a blank envelope, added something else behind it. A divorce petition. Signed. Dated. When she came out 40 minutes later, looking a little flustered, adjusting her hoodie, she nearly jumped when she saw me leaning against the reception counter. "Hey," she laughed. "Nervous. What are you doing here?" "I work here," I said. Calm, like I was reciting the weather. "You remember?" She blinked. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. The color drained from her face so fast I almost offered her a juice box. I handed her the envelope. "Payment for today's service," I said, "and a receipt for the last 7 years." She didn't open it. She didn't need to, because she already knew what it was. I didn't say another word. I just walked away. There's something eerily quiet about betrayal when it's confirmed. It's not loud, not fireworks and shattering glass. It's more like someone shutting a door behind you that you didn't even know was open. The next day was efficient. That's the word I'd use. I canceled our joint credit cards, changed the locks, moved her stuff, the essentials, anyway, into the guest room with quiet dignity and 2 plastic storage tubs. I left a post-it on top that just said, "Pack light. You won't be staying." And no, I didn't touch her clothes or her more personal items. I'm not that guy. No bleach, no slash dresses, no bonfire in the yard. Just silence and space. You'd be amazed how loudly silence speaks when someone's used to you begging. Melissa, or Samantha, or whatever character she was playing, didn't come home that night. Or the next. But her lawyer did. A thick manila envelope slid under my door 2 mornings later. I picked it up like it might hiss. Inside, a response to the divorce petition. Standard stuff. Except for one line. Client disputes claims of infidelity. I chuckled out loud. Disputes. Like it was a parking ticket. Like the name she signed in my clinic system didn't exist. Like I didn't watch her check in as another man's wife while carrying my last name in her wallet. That's when it stopped being heartbreak and became strategy. Because here's what she didn't know. Clinic software logs everything. Timestamps. User IDs. Even IP addresses from the kiosk. I had proof. Not just suspicion. Not just a gut feeling. and I hadn't shown her any of it yet. Not because I was holding back, but because I wanted her to write it down. On paper. In legal ink. I wanted her to formally lie. So I waited. And in the meantime, I met Nathan. I wasn't looking for him. I wasn't hunting him down in dark alleys. No, fate has a way of lobbing softballs when you least expect them. I was at the grocery store, of all places, buying paper towels and frozen dinners like a newly divorced sitcom dad when I saw him. Cart full of protein bars, tan as a rotisserie chicken, hair gelled like he got ready with a YouTube tutorial, and a mirror taped to a motivational poster. And standing next to him, Melissa, wearing a hoodie I bought her last Christmas. She froze when she saw me. He didn't. Nathan, bless his cologne-soaked confidence, actually nodded at me. Hey man. Hey man. As if we were in line for the same golf course tee time. I gave him a smile. The same one I give to patients who insist their internet diagnosis trumps 7 years of medical school. Nice to finally meet the guy who shares my wife, I said casually, lifting a bag of frozen peas. He blinked. Melissa grabbed his arm, muttered something about getting to the checkout, and they fled like cartoon characters in a Scooby-Doo hallway. It was funny, in a tragic, sitcom pilot kind of way. But it was also the last moment I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Because if she could look me in the eye in a frozen foods aisle 2 weeks after being caught and still play house with her side guy, then she wasn't just lying to me. She was lying to herself. And that, my friend, is the most dangerous kind of liar. Once you stop seeing someone as your partner and start seeing them as a puzzle, the pieces begin snapping into place fast. I didn't become paranoid. I became informed. I logged into the clinic records under my admin access, not to spy, but to verify. Melissa had visited the clinic 3 times in the past 6 months. Not under her real name. Always as Samantha Briggs. Always listed with the same emergency contact, Nathan Briggs. Husband. That word burned. Husband. Like I'd been demoted quietly while managing our mortgage, grilling on Sundays, and folding her bath towels the way she liked them. Tri-folded, stacked, not rolled. That was her line in the sand, towels. So yeah, I pulled every timestamp, every appointment detail, every insurance denial note that showed she was paying cash to avoid leaving a trail. And I put it all in a nice, neat little folder titled, Briggs versus Briggs. Catchy, right? Meanwhile, Melissa, or, I should say, the defendant, still hadn't responded directly. No call. No apology. No weepy text message. Just silence. Like she was hoping this would blow over. Like I'd forget the part where she impersonated a fictional version of herself to keep up her side life. Well, I didn't. In fact, I got very, very loud, just not to her. First stop? My lawyer. The man's name was Bill, and he wore suspenders unironically. I gave him the folder. He flipped through it, eyebrows climbing north. You want to press fraud charges? He asked. Or just go full scorched earth? Both, I said, but politely. He smiled like a man handed a double espresso and a demolition permit. That week, he filed an updated divorce claim citing fraud, false identity use, and marital misrepresentation. Fancy lawyer words for. She made up a second life and forgot to erase her footprints. We served her the new papers at Nathan's address. That was important. Her new address. The one she hadn't told me about but had been living at for months. And here's where it got even more cinematic. A few days later, I got a text. Not from her. From Nathan. Dude, we need to talk. I almost laughed. Instead, I replied, you already had your turn. I'm just cleaning up the mess now. He didn't like that. An hour later, he showed up at my clinic. Walked in like a man ready to negotiate peace talks. Look, he said, stepping up to the front counter. I didn't know she was still married. I swear. She told me it was over between you two. I looked up from the patient ledger, not even pretending to be surprised. She told you she wasn't married, but you went to her OB appointments as her husband? He blinked. Yeah, that's what I thought. She's confused, man, he said, lowering his voice. She said you weren't affectionate, that you stopped being present. Oh, there it was. The classic, he didn't appreciate her defense. Here's a wild idea, I said. Next time you want to date a married woman, maybe skip the role-playing as her medical proxy. He opened his mouth to respond, but I held up a hand. Also, I added, pulling out my phone, smile. Click. You've just been photographed on private medical property, without permission. I'll make sure the security footage backs it up. Have a nice day, Mr. Briggs. He left. Fast. You ever watch a house fall apart from the inside? That's what the next 2 weeks felt like. Except the house was my marriage. The beams were lies, and the termites were wearing lipstick and filing joint taxes under someone else's name. Melissa didn't reach out. Not even a denial this time. Not even a courtesy lie. Which, in a weird way, I respected. She knew she'd been caught. There was no speech left. No twist ending. But silence. That's where most people miscalculate. See, silence only helps if the other person is waiting. I wasn't. I was moving. I emptied out our joint storage unit. Took only what I'd paid for. Labeled the rest for Samantha. Taped a note on the boxes. Be sure to use your real ID when you come pick these up. Security cameras are working. I moved into a furnished rental on the other side of town. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, small balcony. Came with a rusted grill and the ghost of somebody else's dreams. But it was clean, quiet, and mine. My evenings changed. No more folding laundry that wasn't mine. No more lighting candles because lavender boosts intimacy. No more pretending I didn't see her smile when her phone buzzed at midnight. Instead, I cooked for one. I ate at the table with a book instead of small talk. I slept diagonally across the bed and didn't miss the sound of her snoring one bit. But don't mistake comfort for peace. I still had a job to finish. The legal wheels were turning fast now. My lawyer, Bill, had filed the fraud claim, and she'd been subpoenaed to provide all documentation associated with her alternate identity. We even had court orders for the clinic records, not that I needed them. I was the one who pulled the logs. And then, one morning, I got an email. Subject line: "Are you doing this to hurt me?" I didn't open it right away. I stared at it for 10 minutes, sipping my coffee like a man watching smoke curl from a bridge he didn't want to save. Finally, I clicked. "I don't understand why you're being so cruel. I never meant to fall in love with someone else. I was just trying to find happiness again, and I didn't know how to tell you. You never looked at me the same after your mom died. You shut down. Nathan made me feel seen. That doesn't make me a bad person. It just makes me honest about what I need. Why are you trying to ruin me?" Ruin you? I laughed. Not a bitter laugh. More like the kind you let out when you realize someone still thinks the game is tied and you're already 10 points ahead. She had lied. She had cheated. She had committed insurance fraud, falsified identity records, and dragged some oblivious gym rat into the wreckage. And I was the one ruining her? No reply. That's when I started thinking. This wasn't over. Not just yet. Because here's the thing most people don't understand about someone like me. I'm not vindictive. I'm precise. Revenge? That's a messy, unpredictable concept. But consequences? Those are fair, predictable, honest. And so I started building my endgame. First, I mailed Nathan a manila envelope. Inside were photocopies of the clinic logs showing she used a false identity, a printout of our still legally binding marriage certificate, the front page of our mortgage, still in both our names. No note, no threats, just facts. Then I called Melissa's employer. I didn't tell them about the affair. I'm not petty. I told them she'd listed her marital status incorrectly on several insurance documents, possibly affecting her tax liability and dependent claims. I emailed copies, CC'd the HR compliance department, and then I waited. By the following Monday, her lawyer contacted Bill in a panic. Apparently, Melissa had been placed on leave pending investigation. Nathan had moved out. Their lease was terminated, and her lawyer was now begging to settle quietly. They offered to drop the dispute, agreed to dissolve the marriage with full fault on her, even threw in a request for me to sign a non-disclosure clause. No public accusations. No more noise. Bill called me and asked, "You want to take it?" I said, "Not yet." Because there was one last thing I needed to do. Not to her. To myself. I booked a therapy session. Just one. Sat down in a room with a man who wore corduroy pants and had the kind of calm voice that makes you suspicious. I told him the whole story, top to bottom. The gynecologist lie. The alias. The silence. The performance. And I asked him one question. What kind of man lets this happen without seeing it sooner? He leaned back and said something I'll never forget. The kind of man who trusted someone completely. That's not weakness. That's evidence of who she failed to be. And with that, I was done. I signed the divorce agreement the next day. No alimony. No reconciliation. No theatrics. Just a clean line through her name. Then I sent her one final envelope. Inside was a check. It was made out to Samantha Briggs. Amount, 1 cent. Memo line, for services rendered. And underneath it, A post-it note. Your alias didn't fool me. Your choices did. Enjoy the life you lied to build. You're not my problem anymore. I didn't expect a reaction. Didn't need one. Because by then, I was already gone. After the check and the post-it note, I heard nothing. No late-night call. No knock at the door. No dramatic monologue about how she just got confused. I think by then even she knew some storms don't blow over. Some just blow everything down. What she left behind wasn't much in the literal sense. A pair of shoes by the front door, heels she used to wear when she still wanted to impress me. A book on emotional attunement she never finished reading. An old hoodie of mine she claimed as her own years ago and wore during movie nights or when she came home late and didn't want to be asked why. And a mug. One of those novelty ones with "World's Best Wife" in chipped gold lettering. She never even liked coffee. I found it in the dishwasher. Still stained. That was the funny part. After all the lies and side door exits, the double identities and the half-hearted emails, she still ran one last load of dishes. Almost made me laugh. Almost. But you don't rebuild your life by sorting mugs. You do it one unremarkable day at a time. I started by reclaiming the quiet. People always talk about the noise of heartbreak. The crying, the shouting, the slamming doors. But the aftermath? That's a different beast. It's the hum of the fridge in a too-still kitchen. The clink of a single fork on a plate that used to host 2 meals. The stretch of a bed where no one rolls over anymore. At first, the silence was heavy, accusing. But after a while, it got lighter. It stopped asking, "Why weren't you enough?" and started whispering, "You're still here." I rearranged the living room, swapped out the couch, bought a cheap record player, and started spinning vinyl again. There's something about music that hasn't been digitized. It feels more honest, like it remembers what a heart sounds like before it breaks. One night, I put on an old Bill Withers record and just sat there with a drink, staring out the window, watching nothing in particular. And I felt not happy, but whole. Wholeness doesn't always come from addition. Sometimes it's the result of subtraction. A toxic presence removed. A weight lifted. A mask dropped. She took herself out of my life. And it turns out that was the most generous thing she ever did. But here's the twist you weren't expecting. She came back. 3 months after the ink dried. Long enough that I'd stopped checking the mailbox with dread. Short enough that her name still stirred a muscle memory I hadn't yet untrained. I was walking out of the grocery store, a bag of oranges in one hand, when I saw her. She looked different. Not broken, not humbled, just undone. The version of her who used to glide through rooms now stood crooked under the weight of reality. She waved. I didn't wave back. Instead, I watched her walk up slowly, like she was asking for something without knowing what it was. "Hi," she said. "Didn't recognize you without your fake name," I said, without even blinking. That hit harder than she expected. She looked down at her shoes. "Can we talk?" "About what?" I asked. "Nathan, your HR investigation? The fact that you billed yourself as someone else to a clinic your husband runs." She sighed. "I'm not here to fight." "You're not here at all," I said. "Not anymore." She nodded, looked away. I saw the check and the note, and I guess I deserved that." I tilted my head. "No, you deserved honesty. That was the last time I gave it to you." She shifted on her feet. "I'm not with Nathan anymore." "I know," I said. She looked surprised. "How?" "Because I mailed him your medical records, sweetheart. Remember? You registered under his last name. That made him your legal next of kin." She blinked, then gave a small laugh. "That's cold." "No," I said, "that's legal. You played make-believe. I just submitted your script for review." She nodded again. "You always were clever." "No," I said again, softer this time. "I was always faithful. There's a difference." A pause. A real one. The kind you feel in your ribs. "Do you hate me?" she asked finally. I looked her dead in the eye. "No, I don't hate you." She blinked again, like she didn't expect that. "I just don't believe in you anymore." She stood there, waiting. For something. A flicker. A tear. A hint that I might still be the man who once folded her towels and remembered her cousin's cat's birthday. But I wasn't him anymore. He died the day she typed in a fake name at the clinic check-in and hoped I'd never notice. So I walked past her. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't look back. And in that moment, for the first time since this whole mess started, I felt free. After that parking lot farewell, if you could even call it that, I went home and sat in silence for a while. Not the heavy kind this time. This silence didn't accuse or ache. It just was. like a room finally aired out after a long winter. And that's when I realized something. The house wasn't haunted anymore. Not by her perfume, or the sound of her keys, or the way she used to hum when she was lying. She was gone, and so was the version of me who waited around, hoping for her to remember she loved me. That version of me had been buried with a check for 1 cent and a yellow post-it that hit harder than any fist. It was time to build something new. So I made a blueprint. Not on paper, not with rulers and lines and bullet points, but in my head, quietly, with intention. Step 1. Routine. It's funny how quickly routine can become rebellion. I started waking up earlier. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Mornings were mine now. Coffee at 6 a.m. Not 6:07 after she'd monopolized the machine, making some frothy nonsense that smelled like hazelnut regret. I'd sit on the patio, watch the sun sneak up behind the trees, and just exist. No texts, no small talk, no explaining why I needed space. I had it now, in spades. Step 2. Repair, not replace. I didn't fill the space she left with noise or strangers. No late-night apps, no blind dates recommended by well-meaning friends. I wasn't interested in distractions. I was interested in reconstruction. I took up woodworking again, something I hadn't done since college. The garage, once filled with boxes labeled Christmas decor and Melissa's fall stuff, became a workshop. I built a table, then a shelf, then a new headboard for the bed she never came home to. Every piece of wood was quieter than she ever was. And more honest, too. Step 3. No more maybe. I used to live in the land of maybe. Maybe she's just stressed. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe this is just a phase. I torched that map and moved to a place called certainty. I was certain she lied. Certain she cheated. Certain she never thought I'd stand up. And more than anything, certain I was better off without someone who needed a fake name to find happiness. It's amazing how freeing that is. But just when the air clears and the dust settles, that's when the past tries to slip back in. This time, it wasn't Melissa. It was Nathan. Yep, Jim Kin himself. The man who once had his arm around my wife in my waiting room, looking like he just finished a protein shake and a betrayal. He showed up again. This time, not at the clinic. At my house. Now, I should pause and say, I don't believe in drama for drama's sake. I don't shout. I don't brawl. I don't slam doors. But when a man pulls up in a leased car that costs more than your first mortgage, steps onto your lawn like he owns time, and says, "Can we talk?" You listen. With limits. I didn't invite him in. I didn't offer coffee. I met him on the porch, arms crossed, no emotion. "What do you want, Nathan?" He hesitated. Looked down at his shoes like they might help him. "She told me you sent me the clinic stuff. And the photos." "I did," I said. He nodded. "I figured. I wanted to say you were right." I blinked. "About what? That she was married? Or that you were the discount version of something I threw out?" He winced. "About her. About what she is. She lied to me too." I raised an eyebrow. "What? She told you her name was Jessica now?" He smirked. Briefly. Then it faded. "She's pregnant." Silence. He stared at me, waiting for my expression to shift. It didn't. "I thought you should know," he added. "Just in case it was yours." Now that made me laugh. A real one. The kind that starts in your spine and rolls through your chest like thunder. I laughed so hard I had to lean against the railing. When I caught my breath, I said, "Nathan, listen carefully. If she were pregnant with my child, the baby would be able to recite its own social security number by now. She hasn't been in my bed in nearly a year. And even then, she was more distant than a voicemail." He looked embarrassed. "Good." She said she wasn't sure. "Of course she did," I said. "Because confusion buys time. And time buys sympathy. But don't mistake the pregnancy test for proof of character. You're looking at a woman who created a second identity so she could double dip at the buffet of bad decisions." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I feel stupid." "You should," I said calmly. "But not because she tricked you. Because you believed her. Same as I did." He stood there for a moment. Defeated. I didn't enjoy it. But I didn't stop it either. "Look," he said, stepping backward toward his car. "I know you hate me." "I don't hate you," I said. "I just don't respect you. Not yet." He nodded once, got in his car, and drove off. And just like that, the ghost of what came between us finally exited stage left. I went back inside. The sun was setting now, golden and quiet. I made dinner for one. Steak, not overcooked. A baked potato with way too much butter. And a single beer, not shared. And I ate it at the table I built with my own hands. Not for her. Not for revenge. But for me. About a month after Nathan left my porch looking like a man who'd just learned the earth wasn't flat after all, I found myself doing something I didn't expect. I wrote her a letter. Not to send. Not to frame. Not even to burn dramatically while staring into the distance. Just to write it. Just to say the things I didn't say when I still had the chance, or the appetite, to care. It started like this. Melissa, don't worry. This isn't a love letter. It's not even a hate letter. Think of it more like a post-mortem. I've realized something lately. You never really knew me. You knew the version of me that smiled through your distance, paid the bills on time, and waited quietly while you figured things out. You knew the man who folded laundry while you texted him from across the house. But you didn't know the man who watched patterns. You didn't know the man who remembered your lies better than you remembered your excuses. You didn't know the man who sat in his own office, his own clinic, and watched his wife sign in under a different name and list another man as her emergency contact. You thought I wouldn't notice. You thought I'd crumble or beg. You thought I'd wait. Instead, I documented. I planned. I moved on. Quietly. The way you never did anything. You once told me I was boring. Turns out, boring is just another word for prepared. I hope Nathan gives you the thrill I never could. And I hope that when your next lie arrives, it at least has better cover art. A man who folds his socks. And never missed a single one. I folded the letter, slipped it into an envelope, and sealed it with no address. Then I filed it away in a drawer labeled past, right between my wedding photos and the warranty for the fridge we bought before the lies got loud. That was the last time I wrote her name. You know what they don't tell you about rebuilding your life? It's not made of big choices. It's made of tiny ones. Like switching your usual coffee shop because the old one still plays her favorite song. Or finally unfollowing her on social media, not out of spite, but because even her silence takes up too much space. I repainted the walls. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to remind myself that the old life no longer lived here. Then I did something I hadn't done in 10 years. I took a vacation. Alone. 4 days in a mountain cabin. No phone signal, no expectations. Just trees, cold air, and my thoughts, finally quiet. I read. I hiked. I sat on the porch drinking whiskey and not once looked over to see if someone was judging my glass. When I came back, I didn't feel healed. That's too clean a word. But I felt directional. Like the compass had stopped spinning. Then, one night, I opened my email. There was a message waiting. Not from her. From her boss. Turned out, my quiet little tip to HR months ago, it had grown teeth. Melissa had been terminated. False information on employment documents. Insurance manipulation. Multiple failed attempts to cover up the discrepancies with what she called a misunderstanding. It wasn't criminal, barely, but it was professional suicide. No lawsuit. No calls. Just silence. Turns out when you build your life on false names and fake truths, even the exit wound is invisible. I read the email twice. Then I deleted it. I didn't need a trophy. Just closure. I was making dinner when it happened. A knock at the door. 3 soft taps. Not urgent. Not forceful. But intentional. I opened it to find a teenage girl, maybe 17, standing on the porch with a small backpack and a cautious look. "You're Mr. Carter, right?" she asked. "Depends who's asking." "I'm Ava," she said. "Melissa's niece." I blinked. Didn't know she had one. "Yeah," she smiled sadly. "She doesn't talk about my side of the family much." I stepped outside, arms crossed. "What can I do for you, Ava?" She told me what happened. Kind of. She said you were mad. That you exposed her. I didn't expose her. I just held up a mirror. She looked at her shoes. That sounds like something she'd say. There was a pause. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a box. Small. Simple. "She asked me to give you this," Ava said. "But I added something too." I opened it when she left. Inside, Melissa's wedding ring. A flash drive. And a folded note. The note was hers, handwritten. It said, "You were always going to win. I just didn't know how badly I deserved to lose." The flash drive? It was a video. She sat on a couch in some Airbnb. No makeup. No jewelry. Looking more human than she had in years. "This is for your eyes only," she began. "I lied to you. I know you know that. But I kept lying to myself even after you found out. I told myself you were cold. I told myself I was searching. But the truth is, I got bored, and I didn't want to admit I was the boring one. She paused. Nathan's gone. He took the job in Denver. I never even told him I was pregnant. Because I wasn't. She looked down. I lost everything I built with you. Because I thought love was a performance. But you lived it. Quietly. Faithfully. Even when I didn't deserve it. I watched the whole thing without moving. No rage. No tears. Just stillness. Then I ejected the drive, snapped it in half, and tossed it in the trash. Because I didn't need her apology. I already had my peace. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's as simple as being fine. But sometimes, you give them exactly what they want. Just not in the way they wanted it. See, Melissa eventually got in touch again, this time by mail. No return address. A simple letter. If you're willing, I'd love to talk. I want to make amends. Maybe even see if we could talk, really talk. You were the only person who ever knew me. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the letter. To her father, a man she hadn't spoken to in years. The one who disowned her for a string of similar lies that nearly cost him his business. I included a sticky note. She says she wants to talk. I figured she could start with the family she walked out on before she walked out on mine. And that was the revenge. Because she expected me to chase her forgiveness. Instead, I handed her over to someone who stopped believing in her before I ever had the chance. I heard later she moved back in with her mom. No job. No Nathan. No title. Just Melissa. Stripped of aliases. And me? I'm doing great. I built a new table. It seats 6. Not because I need 6 chairs, but because one day, I might want a full house again. And when I do, it won't be with someone who needs a fake name to feel real.